Hello and welcome to the Final Straight F1 podcast with Ben and Tonda.
And today we're looking at the story of the 2024 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the final Grand Prix of the 2024 Formula One season. And man, oh man, what a season it was, Ben. I mean, ups and downs, twists and turns, plot twists, unexpected winners, 7 multiple race winners, and winners from 4 different teams this year. Who would have thought at the start of the year, when Max Verstappen was dominating as he was last year, that it would turn out to be one of the greatest seasons that we've seen over the past couple of years. And what a finish. I have to say, what a finale. That was something incredible. I mean, of course, as a man who favors Charles Leclerc and Ferrari, I have mixed feelings about the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I mean, on one hand, yes, McLaren, the Orange Devils, won with 666 points. They won the Constructors' Championship. But what a drive from Leclerc. I mean, I feel like that was definitely
incredible.
The highlight of the weekend, with, of course, the penalty being announced right at the start after the free practice sessions. And then that unfortunate qualifying that saw Charles Leclerc out in Q2, if I'm not mistaken. And then starting from P19, but ending on the podium step. What did you think, Ben?
Well, as you say, last race of the season, Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It wouldn't be an Abu Dhabi GP without some little tiny bit of controversy, would it? But yeah, as you said, Leclerc's drive was incredible. It was, some might say, drive of a champion, because maybe, because we had the fight between Ferrari and McLaren for the constructors title, right? So it was still pretty much game on. And right as you say, 10 place grid penalty, I think it was for the battery change or the energy store. So it was a major disadvantage to Ferrari. Also including the fact that Leclerc has been, I think, P14 in qualifying. Yeah. And it didn't help that the McLaren Papaya has been 1-2 in qualifying. So, it seemed like it's going to be game over. And we had Leclerc starting pretty much last. Maybe after some penalties were actually included, then he was starting on the grid P19.
Yeah.
A few places behind Lewis Hamilton, who in his last qualifying for Mercedes has had a terrible last lap where K-Mag has again opened up the Book of Forbidden Moves, and he threw a cone at Hamilton.
Oh yeah,
we'll get to that later. It was an incredible race to watch, but my God, turn 1 and lap 1, pure chaos. You again had the race with a penalty after penalty. You had Max Verstappen sending it in turn 1 on Oscar Piastri in a corner, which I don't think it's a corner where you really send it. So what did you think of the move that Max Verstappen has made on Oscar Piastri?
Well, Max Verstappen, like a true tifoso, wanted to help his his emotional support rival Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. But I mean, it wasn't the greatest. I mean, it wasn't as daring and as headless as some of the other moves that we saw Verstappen pull this year. But it was strange. I mean, at first, I think he wasn't there at the apex, but at first it seemed like there would be enough room. But then, they just touched Piastri, saying, something like "move of a real champion" or something. I don't think he really likes that guy. But it really suddenly threw a wrench into McLaren's seemingly clean-cut path to victory. of the constructors championship, because suddenly, of course, you had Charles starting P19, but now you had Oscar out of the game, somewhat, because he also got a penalty later on. So he was just trying to claw his way back to the top 10 the whole race. And suddenly, Max and Piastri touch. Through goes Carlos Sainz, and it's game on, right? And it's game on between the two former teammates and very good friends, Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. And at that point, really anything could have happened, right? Because I think it's also important to, point out that Lando had a very, very good race as well. He, when it counted, he had a solid drive. He did not make a mistake. Like, if you remember Singapore, where he was leading, but there were a couple of questionable moments where it seemed like he would send it straight to the barriers. But here he was just, managing the tires. He was on pace. He was doing everything that needed to be done. The pit stops were good. Everything fell in place. And there's just nothing that Ferrari could have done. There's nothing more that Ferrari could have done with the hand that they were dealt. Because starting from P19 and, he was P8 after like 1 lap or 2 laps or something.
Yeah.
And then climbing all the way to P3. I mean, Ferrari were really close. They were really close. But McLaren really, Lando did what he had to do. And, I mean, I'll admit, it would have been nice to see Carlos and Charles win a championship together before Carlos leaves the team. But McLaren have just had the better car and the better year. And it's very fair.
I agree. And as you mentioned earlier, the collision between Verstappen and Piastri massively helped Leclerc also. Because after lap 1, he was already P8 from P19, which was a crazy, it's a crazy move to go like pretty much from last to middle of the points, right? So incredible. He used all the opportunities that were there. And as you mentioned, the championship pretty much, it didn't end with a humongous gap, did it, right? Because we had Piastri pretty much, I don't know if he even scored. I think he was, I think he was P10.
P10.
So yeah, he scored 1 point. You had Norris winning it, but you had the Ferraris 2-3, right? So one certain race comes into my mind, and it's Baku.
Yeah.
But Formula One is not for what ifs, because there could have been many different scenarios, right? Yeah. For example, if Verstappen didn't collide with Norris in Austria.
Exactly, and I mean, if he didn't collide with Piastri at the start of this race. Yeah, it is easy. I mean, I have seen some, Italian Strike Force members saying, "Oh yeah, Carlos cost us the championship. Look at Baku." But I agree that you cannot look at it that way, because, I mean, look at, we've talked about this many times, but Norris and McLaren, there have been quite a lot of mistakes and a lot of what ifs in terms of points. So, but those are just, things that happen in F1. I mean, can think back to, Baku seems to be the place, because remember 2021, Lewis Hamilton was set to go on and win the race, but brake magic going on into in the first turn, and then Abu Dhabi. So
exactly, you have many cases that just, it goes one way or the other, right? We know there have been many cases in F1. For example, as you said, 2021, you had 2008, all the controversies, some smaller, some bigger, but it seemed like this race really came, I don't know, I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 race. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, because Norris pretty much ran away with the race win. Maybe it seemed like Carlos Sainz could do something, but once they put the hards on the car, it seemed like the McLaren just drove away. I mean, but it still seemed like an interesting race, right?
At points, it looked like they asked even Norris, "Will you be able to catch Carlos on fresh tires?" And I was in my mind, I was just going back to Monza when
Yep.
you know the
That'll be
Ferrari
fun.
stayed out and Leclerc won after
Mm.
McLaren decided to go for the fresher tires. But seems like they have, there wasn't a need to pit. They weren't under
Mm.
any real pressure.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi is not a tire eater, so
Yeah.
you save your tires. You don't really use your tires all that much, even though this year we had one step softer compound tires than last year, right? We had the C5, C4, and C3. I think last year the softest one was C4. So that was a difference that also, I mean, it still was a one stop, right? So, but we could see that there was the whole starting field pretty much on the mediums, right?
Yep.
Except for one man only, being Lewis Hamilton, who started on the hard tires from, I think it was P16, and it didn't look amazing for him
Yeah.
at the start of the race, because the hard tires clearly were a slower tire. And yeah, he was struggling to overtake, I think it was Liam Lawson or someone like that, and who, by the way, had a solid race, except for his terrible pit stops, or maybe a pit stop that changed the fate of the race. But yeah, in terms of strategy, the race wasn't really that interesting because it was a one stop and only one person, Lewis Hamilton, was starting on a different tire. But then, his last race for Mercedes, many of us had different expectation, perhaps, right? But Lewis Hamilton managed to go from P16 to P4. And I don't know if you heard it, but it was not shown on the radio. But Bono told Lewis Hamilton when he boxed for the medium tires, the last magic words of "it's hammer time." And it was the hammer time probably for the last time. Because I doubt that the Ferrari engineers are gonna tell Lewis it's hammer time. I think
Maybe
he
in
needs to
Italian.
get used to. Yeah, maybe, but he needs to get used to the words we're checking or something like this. But yeah, what did you think of the comeback of Hamilton? Because it seemed like he had so much pace on those mediums. It was crazy.
It was a beautiful drive by Lewis, I would say. And I think the only reason that it's not talked about more is the fact that it got overshadowed by, because P16 to P4, that's really good, but P19 to P3, it's just a little more positions, nothing you can do. But it feels like it was a really nice closure for him and the team. I mean, the whole season it's been a kind of a thing, right? At the start, I mean, why did they let Lewis go? Why didn't they offer him more? What, like, could have been an ambassador, and the controversy surrounding his departure from the team. But then you had his win in Silverstone, right? And then in Spa, kind of, after George Russell got disqualified. And then, of course, there were the downs as well, where he couldn't get out. He didn't get into Q1 a few times. I mean, into Q3, even when the car had pace a few races ago, right?
Yeah.
But this time, he just managed to nail it. And then having that, and also the fact that they came into this race with George equal on points as teammates. Which is a pretty,
for the 3-year partnership.
Coming into the last race of the season in Abu Dhabi, on points with someone for Lewis Hamilton must be a bit of a PTSD moment to 2021. But
maybe
this time
hurts.
It was him doing the last lap overtakes, and I think it was a great farewell. And I'm also, given this performance from Leclerc and Hamilton, it makes me very excited for the Ferrari lineup.
Yeah,
next year to
exactly.
see
I mean,
how both of them can fare individually and against each other.
Yeah, exactly. Like these two drivers, like I think, I don't know if it was Fred Vasseur who was saying, I don't know, there were maybe some comments towards, Vasseur and saying that maybe they chose a wrong driver of Lewis Hamilton, and maybe Mattia Binotto would have, I think he was saying that, he would have never signed Hamilton, and Vasseur finally said that, well, he would never go to Sauber, would he? As Mattia Binotto
Wow.
is at Sauber.
Oh.
But anyways, I think he also commented on the race pace of Hamilton, and there were I saw some pictures that actually where, you have the driver TVs, or you have like, when you're the team principal, when you're on the pit wall, you've got the different metrics, different data, and you've got some cameras. You can track the drivers, right? And apparently Vasseur had Sainz, Leclerc, and on the bottom he did have Lewis Hamilton, whom he was watching. So I think he might be very happy with his lineup for next year.
And I mean, I genuinely believe that Ferrari will have the strongest lineup on the grid next year. I mean, that's not to downplay Carlos Sainz's abilities. I think that they had one of, if not the best lineup already, with Charles and Carlos, between the two of them. But next year, I think it's definitely the guys in red. Only question is, how will the car be? Because we saw this year that it was the best in some tracks, but overall it wasn't as consistent as they would have wanted it to be, which has been a problem with the Ferraris for a few years now.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of nailing the development and not getting into the same trouble as this year with that disastrous triple header and a double DNF in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and as you say, like, I think the triple header, I think that brings some PTSD for you. But it seems like McLaren is the car to beat for next season. But the Ferrari, like, let's just take a step back and see that they haven't really developed much.
Yeah.
From some few races ago, they haven't brought anything much to the car because they just wanted to reinstate the balance of the car, which is really important for these ground effect cars, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean the more performance you put on these cars, the faster it's going to go. And we've seen that with Mercedes. We've seen that with Red Bull as well, who seem to have kind of found their Achilles heel, might have found their issues, and seem to be kind of getting on top of them towards the end of the season. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see next year, because even you cannot predict, like, if we had a different race, we couldn't predict who's going to be the fastest one, right? Because there were many predictions that Ferrari would be the fastest car in Abu Dhabi. It clearly wasn't. I think it was the McLaren still. But I'd be really interested to see what Leclerc would do if he started from the position Sainz has started from. But yeah,
that's true.
I mean, at least we had a very interesting drive from the back. And speaking of interesting things, I'm going to mention one thing that you might probably have forgotten. And it is that Esteban Ocon has not raced the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix for Alpine.
That is true. I did forget
it was
that.
Jack
we had Jack Doohan. Yet another rookie this year. Just rookies galore in 2024. And I mean, for his first race, not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, Pierre Gasly,
I agree,
did manage to finish in the top 6, if I'm not mistaken.
Pierre Gasly, man. The races he's been on, amazing form.
That man got the podium in Brazil, and ever since then he's just been, I don't know, going off from that. Like, he's been living from that energy. And I mean, it won them not won them. It got them P6 in the constructors.
Exactly, it did.
Over Haas, who also had a pretty good race. I mean, Nico Hülkenberg, let's not forget, qualified P4 for Abu Dhabi. Qualified P4, didn't finish P4, obviously, but still finished in the points. And I do feel kind of bad. I do feel kind of bad for the guys at Haas, because they've had a great year, a terrific year that no one could have foreseen. Meanwhile, Alpine was too busy, with their internal and personal problems in the team. So I think that, we had Kevin Magnussen and his Book of Forbidden Moves, but I think that overall I would have liked to see it gone American P6, but I think that P7 for the team that was 10th, I think, last year and the year before.
Yeah.
and the year before.
I don't think last year, but
Or
it was definitely 2021.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I think that was a very good result still for them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've had so many battles for positions in terms of the Constructors' Championships, right? So it was really interesting to see the battle between, as you said, Alpine, Haas, perhaps even the Racing Bulls, but they didn't have, let's say, the most tidy weekend. Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson qualifying together pretty much again. A lot of speculation going into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, saying that it seems like they're going to decide right after the postseason tests, which already has been done. And there are many speculations that actually Liam Lawson is replacing Sergio Perez for 2025. And they're just negotiating the buyout for Sergio Perez to get out of the contract. And it seems like Isaac Hajar is going to be driving that V-Carb next to Yuki Tsunoda. But what do you think is going to happen at the moment? Because I don't know. It seems like Sergio Perez.
Yeah, I mean,
I predicted him very well, and it didn't happen. So
I think Perez might be out. I wouldn't be surprised. But it seems like a plausible scenario. But I really don't get. I really don't get why they don't put Tsunoda in. I mean, of course, there might be things we don't know about. Maybe Tsunoda is eyeing an Aston seat with the Honda partnership coming, but that seems kind of far-fetched because who is leaving from Aston, and yeah, I mean, feel like it's a shame to put in Lawson, who, I mean, I'm not saying that he's not good, but he hasn't had a full season in F1 yet. I mean, well, Yuki's been waiting for 4 years now, so
yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, Dr. Marco, he's ruthless, but sometimes it works what he does. So we'll see. But
look at Max Verstappen.
I'm convinced that Perez is probably most likely gone.
Yeah, it seems like it's gonna be the final nail in the coffin, but they're apparently supposed to be announcing the driver lineup this week, but I don't see it. I don't know. Yeah. I don't see it, but apparently there were also many speculations about that they actually, when you have the driver registrations for teams, they registered Perez as for Red Bull for 2025, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but it's not looking great for Checo Perez. But speaking of a Red Bull driver, we're going to talk about Max Verstappen for a bit, because he had some huge news before coming into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. He's going to become a dad, and not of the child of Daniel Kvyat.
That is true, of a child of his own. That was, I mean, the kind of the big drama between him and George kind of fizzled a bit between the races, and also with the announcement of the pregnancy overshadowing things quite a lot. But I've seen a lot of speculation that this might be a sign that Max might be retiring soon.
Exactly.
I mean,
that's
probably
what I was
not this
going
year
to ask.
But the way I see it, he might stick it out for another year, and maybe also wait for the new regulations.
Yeah.
See what they're like, because I think he's curious. But after that, I mean, he has 4 championships. Sure, he could try and, I don't know, I mean, the guy obviously loves racing, but I don't know if racing means just Formula 1 forever, right? There are people who want to break all the records. I don't know if Max is that kind of guy. He said that he's not sure if he's going to be here in 2028, 2029. So
yeah,
I could definitely see Max retiring sooner than later.
I agree. Like, my view, initially, I was thinking the same thing, right? Because Max Verstappen has been very vocal about the fact that he wants to see his kids growing up.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be here until his 40s, Maybe not much into his 30s as well. And the way I see it, it's the same as you, right? Like, I think that he's going to do the 2025 season Whether or not that brings him the 5th championship, that's in the stars. But 2026, I think he's going to get a taste of what that brings him.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think if the car for Red Bull is far off or it's not good for 2026, he's going to retire. That's my feeling. But we'll see. For the first time, they're going to go into the new regulations without Adrian Newey, who's going to be with Aston Martin. And he needs to get there quick because it seems like, Fernando Alonso has been very spicy on the radios.
Yeah.
He's been very unhappy with the car, saying this is the worst car ever when he was in the free practice, which, I think he forgot about the McLaren Honda he used to have, but the Astons are terribly slow on the straight line, seems like. And it seems like it's an issue for them for already almost 2 seasons, right? And they can't solve it. But the funny thing is, when he said that they're the slowest on the straight, he immediately was P1 in the speed trap. Probably a lot of slipstream, but funny. And Aston Martin finished 5th in the Constructors' Championship. Yeah. Very under the radar season, like a mediocre season. Like you really didn't see much.
No man's land. Couldn't challenge the top 4 in any way whatsoever. Yeah. But still managed to grab the points necessary here and there. And the bottom 4, the bottom 5 were too busy squabbling. Or the points that they could get to actually make a dent in that. But I think it might be time to look at our final predictions for 2024 and see what we thought of what would happen in Abu Dhabi. And I was half wrong, half right. I believed that Charles Leclerc would outscore Lando Norris by more than 8 points. But that McLaren would still win the Constructors' Championship, thanks to Oscar and so on. Well, one of those things happened. What about your prediction?
Well, my prediction was that Sergio Perez would be on the podium, and his race finished a lot sooner than I thought. Not much to say, pretty much. Like, I think he had the hit in lap 1 from Bottas, or who it was. Which also, Valtteri Bottas, he was in Q3, wasn't he? He out-qualified Perez.
Yeah.
Which is, it's pretty shocking.
Bottas into Red Bull 2025?
Maybe. Seems like it. But he said that there are certain people who don't really like him much, and I wonder why. But I understand that. But yeah, Bottas got a penalty as well for that, which is, I don't know. I just find it really, he couldn't really do much at that point, but then he absolutely took out Kevin Magnussen.
Yeah.
Which there's not much to say for that, but he really didn't have the last race that he deserved to have.
Yeah, both of them, what a shame for their race to end like this. Reminds me of, didn't Vettel spin as well as last?
Oh God, I can't remember.
Yeah, actually, I might be just making stuff up. But
that was probably overshadowed by the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
But
no, it was 2022 when he retired. Okay, yeah. Well,
anyway. There is no prediction to make for the next race. Well, or is there?
Yeah.
Or we can predict.
Why not?
We can.
Why not?
Actually, we can.
Yeah.
And this time, is it Australia?
I believe so.
Australia?
No, it's going to be Bahrain, isn't it?
Well, look it up.
Australia?
Look it up, Ben.
We will look that up. So, yeah. What would be your prediction anyway?
It doesn't really matter what track it is it? Does it? Well, let's see. For the first race of 2025, in give or take 4 months, right?
And it's Australia. You
it
are
is Australia.
Correct.
Going back to the times of Australia being the first race. And I will say that Max Verstappen, the champion of the 2024 season, and the man who had really bad luck in Australia this year with his engine kind of blowing up, will win the Australian Grand Prix 2025. He will come out of the gate swinging. You know, we will see. We will say, "Oh God, another Max Verstappen dominance." But no, it's gonna be the first race. Who knows what happens after that? But that is my prediction. What about yours?
Okay, that's an interesting prediction. Well, my prediction is that since it is gonna be Australia, I predict that Lewis Hamilton, going into the Ferrari, is gonna find his lost form in qualifying, and he's gonna put it on pole like he did many, many times with Mercedes. 2018, 6/10, I think, quicker than anyone else. 2017, I think he also put it on pole. He has many poles in Albert Park, so I think he's gonna rediscover his qualifying form and he's gonna put it on pole position.
I think I'm already excited. Just talking about it, but we do have to wait. But before we do that, we still have to say who the driver of the weekend is. And I mean, I have no option but to say Charles Leclerc. I mean, that drive, that if that would have won them the championship, I think it would have gone down as one of the greatest drives ever.
Yeah.
Sadly, that didn't happen, but still great in my opinion. Still great.
I agree. I'm gonna say Lando Norris though, because
Understandable.
He had no competition. He destroyed everyone in qualifying. He destroyed everyone in the race, and yeah, there's not. I don't think he put a foot wrong in this race, and probably this is a show of what could have been, because this was probably the way that he was supposed to win more races in this season, but it only makes it exciting to go into 2025, right?
Yeah. But bottom field driver of the weekend, who would you pick?
That's a difficult one. Bottom field driver of the weekend. I think it's going to be Pierre Gasly. The way he defended against George Russell in the first laps, it was insane. He couldn't overtake the Alpine. I mean, George Russell couldn't overtake the Alpine. He made the car so wide, and it was impossible to overtake him, even though that the Alpine actually is fairly slow on the straight line, right? And he finished P7 in the race. Best of the rest, pretty much. Nothing you can add. This is the driver of the weekend for me in the bottom field. What about you?
I definitely agree. I mean, we've been talking about Gasly for the past few races, and for a good reason, but just to give a shout out to the man who has been, came back and has been driving great all season and put it into P4, I will say Nico Hülkenberg.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see what he can do next year.
He's doing a great job.
In the Sauber. I don't think he's going to be able to do much, but maybe Audi after that will give him something to work with.
Yeah.
But for the rating, Grand Prix, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10.
Okay. I would give it probably a 7. I lacked battle for the lead. I lacked strategy plays, maybe. But in last year's standards, it would be a 9.5. But
fair enough.
Yeah, I agree. It's solid rating. So, I mean, we had a great race. Again, a great finale.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great teaser for next year as well.
Really
but I think we're going to have to do a season summary, because we have had some bold predictions in the mid-season review and, during the summer break.
I think we were so off, because that was at a point where Mercedes won 2 races in a row. And I think both of us placed them like top 2 of the championship. Well,
Well, look at that ended up.
But yeah, we will have to do that. But this was the last race of the 2024 season.
Yeah,
Last
it's gonna
episode of the Finest Straight F1 podcast for the year, not counting the season summary or whatever we will come up with. But this is it, Ben. What
this
a
is
year.
it. Yeah, what a season, what a year, what an amazing race, and what absolute shockers and amazing races we had this season. I'm just really happy with the way it turned out from the way
Yeah.
it started.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're gonna be really excited to get back. Now, there's gonna be a little drought because we have a winter break that takes
Yeah.
almost 3 months, or maybe even more. So 3 months approximately, but we will cover anything that we find that is gonna be interesting for you. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. To whoever is watching us, it's been an incredible season, and we will see you soon.
Take care.